Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Today we are talking about how to get your start as a narrative director. If you want to direct movies and you're not right now, this podcast is going to be about how to get your start, how to step into that world of, the Steven Spielbergs and the James Camerons and the Christopher Nolans and the Ridley Scotts, where you're no longer, being a glorified producer or a glorified cinematographer on like commercials or corporate videos or infomercials, whatever it is, that you're not really telling a story for its own sake, but you're working in service of, a product or a corporation or even teaching something, all of which are great, but the job of directing a feature film or a short film in a narrative sense is very different. So today we're going to talk about how that begins, and if you're doing it, how to advance your career further. I've directed 2 feature films, Brooklyn Tide and The Devil's Fortune, and numerous short films, and I put most of that down to my work I put my success as a director very squarely on my experience as a writer. So both of the films that I directed, I wrote, and solving the problems of the script are a huge step forward in solving the problems of the on set with actors in the scene. You really need to understand what is happening so that you can, actually offer good direction. Directing and writing are, I'd say, 2 sides of the same coin. There are a lot of successful directors that direct their other people's scripts, but I think the most successful, culturally significant, long-term, successful directors are themselves writers. So today we're going to talk about how you get your foot in the door, how you get started, how you can advance your career and make sure that if this is something you're going to do, that you're going to be able to do it successfully for decades. So you can only direct the material that you have access to. That stands to reason, right? You can only make a film from the scripts that you own or write yourself. And as a beginning director, no great screenwriters are lining up to put their work into the hands of someone who's untested. And it becomes, like a lot of things in Hollywood, a catch-22. You can't get a good script because you haven't done anything, and you can't do anything because you don't have a good script. I really think the only way to break that deadlock, that bottleneck, is to write yourself, is to be your own writer. Even if you don't think of yourself as a writer, your first and second films are probably going to be ones that you yourself wrote. And this becomes tough because, if your experience as a director is limited, your experience as a writer is also limited. So then you're stuck with suboptimal material. You are trying to make a big impression with your directing from a script that may not be that great. But stick with me. The reason that I think that this is important is that you, as a writer, you get to essentially direct the scene time and time again in your imagination. Meaning, as you're writing, you're directing it, but you have freedoms that the director doesn't have. So as you're directing the scene in your head, as you're writing, conversation between 2 people, it lacks something. So you then shift it to a tent on the plains. So shift it to a boardroom, shift it to a basement. In your imagination, you're constantly moving things around. You're putting more people, you're putting less people. You're doing what only the most powerful, successful directors are able to do, which is change the circumstances and the environment of your scene in order to get it to function as it should. Writing also lets you understand story. Story is the is the clay that filmmakers work with. Everyone is the actors, the art director, the cinematographer, the publicist, the editor, all working with story. And if you understand story, and you will by being a writer, you're so much more effective as a director. I like to think of a film or any story as almost like a factory where you have numerous machines that all do something to the raw materials that come in one end so that a finished product is produced at the other end. Each of those, in this metaphor, each of those machines is a scene in the factory, and each shot in your scene is a cog in that machine. So just like, one end of the old Model T Ford factory, you had, rubber, metal, wood, and glass enter at one end. They went through this factory, and out the other end came a car. So just like your audience is coming from all different places, they will go through the process of your film, and at the other end come out, having experienced what you want them to experience, and they'll be happy for it. So you come in, the inputs of this factory are, bored, apathetic, but interested people, and the outputs of this factory are enlightened, amused, and entertained, and somehow brightened human beings. So films and stories both work as that transformative process. And in the middle of each story is one decisive change that happens to the lead character or characters where they are transformed. And the audience is going to be transformed through that process, in that moment. Your transformation happens instantly. It's like one thing, then another thing. So once you decide what that decisive moment is in your film, then that's the story that you want to tell. You want to tell the change of this type of person to this type of person. You want to change from the person who's timid and shy to a person that's brave to take on their destiny. You want to change from the person that's independently minded and doesn't feel they need anyone to someone that is connected to their fellow human beings and understands the value of community or understands the value of teamwork. This is the change in the character. The lead character needs to go through, the choice they need to make and stick to. So that will be somewhere in the middle of your film. Now you need to work backwards to understand who would the character have to start the film as in order to make that change the most satisfying and significant, and then work forwards from the change to say what choices would that character now make? Who would that character be? What would that character do to show the change had happened? Because change happens inside somebody's brain. So we need to show how their behavior changes to show what has changed internally. So you're going to have between 20 and 50 scenes in a film. If you're directing this yourself with limited funds, you're probably closer to 20 or 30. A legal pad has 28 lines on it. So if you do one for each scene, pretty much, you're sitting there plotting out how your film is going to proceed. You're going to say, okay, somewhere in this middle part, probably 2/3 of the way through, this hero is going to make this change. And this is all the things that need to lead up to this change to make the change feel satisfying and believable, but also unpredictable to the audience. These are all the things that need to happen. Then afterwards, these are all the things that have to happen to show. So now every scene is in the film because it needs to be. It's not there because it's pretty. It's not there because, it would be fun to shoot or the actor wants to do it. Each scene is there for a reason. Now, that's plotting the film. You now have a complete film. And if you want help with this, to see some examples, you can ask ChatGPT, for instance, to plot out your favorite film. It'll give you the couple dozen, dozen or so. It'll give you the 20, 30, 40 scenes that happen in the film and what happens in each one. Chat is really good for this. It's a really great way to kind of shortcut having to watch a film and go through. That's a great process as well, and I'd recommend that you do it. But Chat is really great at quickly just pulling out a film, showing everything that happened so you can get a sense of what type of scenes there are, what type of transformation the heroes go through, where they start and where they end. So once you have it plotted out, then you need to sit down and write the film. This is the hard part or the easy part, depending on who you are, what you're writing about. Jordan Peele says if writing isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. Other people like James Cameron and George Lucas, of the biographies that I've read, hated it, but realized that it was necessary, realized that everything that they wanted was on the other side of having this great script. And so they would sit down day after day, hour after hour, and sort of sweat bullets through, this process. I mean, that may sound really difficult. It may sound really soul-destroying, but this is how Star Wars was written. This is how The Terminator and Aliens was written. This is how, a lot of movies get written, where people just do the hard yards. Personally, I don't really have more than 3 or 4 hours creative, capacity in me. When I'm writing, I wake up, have breakfast, do the stuff in the morning, have my coffee, sit down, and I will write probably 1 or 2 scenes a day. That's as much as I can do before my writing really, steeply declines. So that still means that if I write 2 scenes a day, I have 25 scenes to write. I will write a screenplay in 2 weeks, get a first draft. I then put that away for a couple of weeks. I come back to it and see the obvious problems, like the very weak characters, the logistical issues, whatever it is. And then I go through and spend another week fixing those. And then that is my first draft. So, summer's coming up. If you're in school, you have a big break. If you're in the US, even in most Northern European countries, you get a break for summer. So you want to, if you want to do this process, plot the film over a couple of weeks, then sit down and write it over a month. You will have a screenplay. And what's more is that you will have a screenplay that you are very confident as to why each scene is in the film. You know exactly what the function, going back to the factory analogy, the function of each scene is. And within the scene, you'll know what every line is supposed to do for the character, for the dynamic. You'll know what each back and forth is. So when the actor asks you on set, I'm not really sure about this, you will be able to be the sort of first audience, the advocate for the audience on set to understand. You have to know why each line is there, what it does, what its function is. This goes a long way to being a much better director. You understand the script at a fundamental level because you wrote it, and it does amazing things for your confidence on set, for your drive to get a film made. A lot of people start the filmmaking process with a script, and it's sort of, once they hit that first or second or third wall, sort of like running a marathon. Once they start to really hit the wall, it gets so painful or whatever happens, they say, this isn't worth it. Whereas if it's your screenplay, it's your idea, you have this drive and this determination to see something that started in your head turn into a real life thing that other people can experience and go through. Hopefully, the transformation that you're describing of the main character is something that you feel needs to be said, belongs in the world, is transformative enough for you to overcome all the speed bumps on the, along the way that are inevitable on the filmmaking process, even for a short film. That, you know, difficulty is guaranteed. You need a strong enough why to be able to overcome those difficulties. And if you're the one who wrote the script, you're the one who sweated over every word, you have that determination built in. Another advantage of being the writer is that you don't feel the need to add flourishes and, you know, small little things for their own effect. You're not meddling in the film to kind of put your stamp on it. Your stamp is already all the way through. So I think that can sidetrack a lot of directors, and they end up, especially with the cinematographer or the lead actor, kind of locked in a creative battle as to the way something should be done or why it should be that, how it happens in this way. And if it's your words that people are speaking, your words that you're bringing to life, you're far less demanding and far less likely to get into these creative conflicts over things that don't really matter. You know, the lead actor wants to stand while they deliver this line because they feel that's more true to the character, but you want them to sit down because you feel it's more intimate. You know, that type of conflict can derail a film and has derailed films. But if you're the writer-director, you're like, oh, well, if you're the actor is fighting to give life to your script, to your lines, you welcome that. You're like, oh, great. So why do you think, and where is he coming from? And if you think it's wrong, you have the knowledge of the entire arc of the script, all the things that are happening. You have the confidence to say, no, that's not how we're going to shoot this for this reason. I mean, as a director, you can, if you have the time and you think it's going to be quicker, if it's a 2-minute, 2-page scene, you can say to the actor, okay, let's shoot it your way and we'll shoot it my way. And just use your take, right? Like it's 2 minutes. Maybe they get their idea out, they try it, they realize, oh no, it kind of does feel wrong. Whereas you can easily spend 10, 20 minutes arguing about something with somebody when the chance to try it is much, much quicker. So this really is just a breakdown on writing and directing are really two sides of the same coin. Even directors who get other people's scripts usually end up rewriting them extensively, and they're not credited because the WGA, the guild that oversees writers, has the final say on attribution. And I think there was a movie called Leatherheads where George Clooney bought a script he liked on early gridiron American football. He rewrote every line, pretty much every single line, and said, oh, so I want a writing credit now. And the WGA, rightfully, I believe, said, no, you bought a house and painted every wall, like, and maybe took the roof off and put a new roof on. That doesn't make you the architect. The person who created the script is the real author of this. Even if you change all of it, it's still their original idea, their concept, their bones. So just changing the outside is not enough to get you a writing credit. He resigned from the WGA after that, I think, but I'm really glad that they said that, because yes, you don't need to be precious with your lines and how things are said. I'm more than happy to take line suggestions from actors if it's just a way that it comes out better or it suits their voice better. I think that's great. You understand what's behind it. And the same with directing. If I ever have a script of mine directed by somebody else, I'll be only too happy for them to give more oh, should we shoot it from this side? Should we shoot from that side? We could combine these two scenes. If you know how the engine of the story works, if you know what the transformation has to be, then you're open to different ways of arriving there. You're open to, taking a shortcut through here, or, the longer way around because it's more scenic, if you know where the start and where the end are going to be. Writing is really difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, even with, Jordan Peele's idea of like, it should be fun, it should be interesting and engaging. It is months of work, months of really hard imagining work. But I personally believe that I would much prefer to do that work and at least have the feeling that I'm getting better at what I do and moving forward in some way than I would, meeting agents, looking for other scripts, reading other people's things, trying to option books, trying to get writers to write things. It will come back. Like, at least you're in control. It's the same with actors. If you're an actor in Hollywood, you're just going on these auditions and these constant, nothings and getting rejected. If you're writing and shooting your own material on the side, if you're, basically writer directed to be your own, hire yourself, at least you have somewhere to put all that creative energy that you have, and it's not just, you're not feeling like you're always being thwarted by the powers that be. So directors, actors, anyone, I think writing is a great way to sharpen your skills, because it helps you understand how stories work, what stories do, and really connects you to the creative source. That's all I'll say about this. If you want to get your stories out into the world, the only way is to start. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.